Hey guys and girls, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast. This is episode 36, and this week we are talking masturbation and pornography. Yep, you heard us. Brooks is joining us as the regular crew gets into it. Ron, Justin, Keith, and Chris, and myself. And even though we may have a few laughs, we really get serious about these two topics. We look at the stats on both, and we go back to last week's topic and look at some stats that, just to make sure we were accurate, not trying to feed you any lies, that we're still on point with those. And we kind of rehash some of the stuff from last week as well. Also, just to warn you that because of the nature of the topic, this podcast should be for a mature audience. The language isn't, vulgar, but, there are jokes. So keep the little kiddies safe. And at the end, Keith goes off the deep end talking about this new presidential candidate for 2016. So if you want to hear all about this and more, stay tuned to the show. I hope you're interested. Please give us some feedback at our podcast site, forgettingwalls.com/podcast. See us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that good stuff. But now it's time for that dubstep from our man, Ben Sound.
Yeah! Can you feel your heartbeat racing? Can you taste the fear in her sweat? You've done this wrong, it's too far gone. It shoots tell of regret. I admit that I'm just a fool for you. I'm just a fool for you.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast. This is episode 36, and that was Under Oath, a boy brushed red.
Oh yeah.
Living in black and white.
Thank you. And that was to signify the announcement that we have a 31 date tour.
Hey, where are you getting? There you go. What are you getting
31 tour. Oh no, 31 dates tour reunion. Yep. They will be playing Only Chasing Safety.
Yeah, they're only chasing safety, and then Define the Great Line, front to back.
Oh.
Maybe some bonus tracks, but
so guess what? The whole cast of Forgetting Walls will be doing in April.
Going to Charlotte.
We're gonna go see Thrice.
I'm gonna go see Thrice.
So, yep. If you want to check us out, which you probably don't care because Under Oath's going to be in Charlotte in April, and we will be there. Yeah. So, that will be a bad week for recording. Yes, or it will be a great week, one or the other. We don't know yet. But anyways, welcome everybody. Justin, how are you doing on your end?
Doing well. Just in my room as usual. It's still super hot because still don't have air conditioning, but it's all right. It'll get cool here in about a month or so.
You mountain people.
Yeah.
Gotta go to the well for their water.
Yeah, for real.
Justin doesn't have a well. He had to go to the stream.
The well's for the rich folks.
There you go.
And in a different house tonight, we are set up temporarily for a couple months over at Chris's house. And we will be maintaining residence for the next couple months because I am without residence. So, Chris, thanks. How you doing this week?
I'm doing fine. I got a new job working for you.
Gotta love that.
That's a shame.
And as usual,
The prodigal son, Ryan Wilson.
What's up, guys? What's up?
Nailed it.
there we go. And as always, the ever old faithful.
That's what they call me, Old Faithful.
He's hella faithful. Ladies. Hella faithful. Handsome.
Is that the name of a horse they got you?
And if you're single out there, he's waiting for you.
And he's not even that tall, so you can feel secure with him.
That's true.
Wow.
I could be waiting on you. Then again, maybe not. Send a pic first.
Man,
No.
It's going to be that kind of podcast.
That's terrible.
Speaking of
I'm not
strings,
that
that was
shallow.
real shallow.
And back with us, Keith has always been shallow. I mean, he's only knee high.
Yeah.
Wow.
I deserved that.
Yeah.
Cannons in the distance because shots are fired.
Back with us, our awesome friend, the one who we missed. Whether you know him as Kenneth, whether you know him as Kenny. You may know him as Brooks, but around here we call him DJ Soupy. How you doing, my brother?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Yeah, talking to the microphone. I tell them.
Hey.
There we go.
It's been way too long, man.
Oh no, man, we miss Brooks on the show because his quick wit. Okay, well his witty banter. Okay, well I don't know. We'll find something.
His asinine observations.
There we go. But anyways, last week we hit part 1 of the sex series, and I'm going to admit this. Listening back to it as I edited I want to tell you this. It was the best episode we've ever done. There was one cut in the whole 2 hours.
Oh,
seriously? Wow.
And I only cut out a cough.
Okay.
So there we go. Keith has got me a cut. So anyways, my Spotify's still playing, but I was looking back at it and I was thinking, man, there was a lot of stuff we said. There was a lot of things going on. A lot of people were trying to say stuff, and we were so passionate about it. I'm just going to say that this week that if you got something to say, just butt in and interrupt someone.
Exactly.
You don't have to look at me when you say that. I'm sorry that for the last 3 years I was told to wait my turn.
Well, this is a little bit different. We're all adults here. Podcasting rule number 1: if you want to say something, just try to jump in there and say it.
Scream.
Open your mouth.
The loudest person wins.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
Well, then we all lose because Keith is here.
That's me, not the other Keith.
Not me. I don't speak much.
Yeah. But I wanted to go back and hit a couple statistics that I didn't get to hit last week, or I hit and I wasn't real sure about the numbers.
Okay.
Basically because, I can and I want to.
Yeah. And plus, we want to be accurate. We want to be a respectable podcast here.
Oh, absolutely. We got to be respectable, right?
Credible. That's
Are
the
you
word I was
sure
looking
about
for.
that?
Credible is a better word.
I don't think credible is applicable.
Okay, I agree.
Either. Not to
So
this.
there's a couple of statistics out there. We were talking about teenage pregnancy and STDs and stuff last week. And I think this is something big when we were talking about abstinence and abstinence training and things like that. But not abstinence training, but about telling people to be safe. He's talking about where the church should draw the line and stuff. And I'm going to give you a numbers. And CDC put out some numbers, but I think their numbers are a little less researched than some other numbers. There's some people out there that are doing some really good studies. These studies that I'm looking at. Some of them are a little bit older. I can't get a real good date, but it said of the approximate, listen to this, 950,000 teenage pregnancies that occur each year, 3 and 4 are unintended. Over 1/4 of these pregnancies end in abortion. They said within the next year, in the next 12 months, 1 million teens will become pregnant. Now, I don't know how accurate these numbers are, but here's what the STD, here's what the CDC,
The
whole different
STDs have to
statistic.
say about this matter.
the CDC said in 2013 there were 273,000 babies born. Okay, were born. So that doesn't account for miscarriages and abortions and just miscarriages and abortions. So that number of pregnancies could be much, much higher like they were reading. Because a lot of statistics I read are anywhere from 750,000 to 900,000 women or teenagers between the ages of 13 and 19 are becoming pregnant. Now this number is between 15 and 19. They're not including 13 years old and 14 years old kids. So that number can drastically increase.
Yeah.
I thought that was a crazy, crazy number of, teenage pregnancies. Now there's a lot of teenagers. I think
Yeah.
30, they said they estimated the number of teenagers right now are 33 million teenagers. in the
That's
world.
frightening.
Or I mean, in the United States.
That's way too many.
You can't say anything. We just got done being teenagers.
Yeah.
Just finish that one up, Justin.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I mean, it's not that bad.
So,
But then it's justified to say it's terrifying because we know how we were.
Exactly. Thank you. That's what I was going for.
and then of course they talk about 1 million teens will become pregnant in the next 12 months, but they say this silly statistic of 95% of those will be unintended. How many teenage pregnancies are literally? I mean, you think about that. 1 million, so 950,000 kids. So there's going to be at least 50,000 teenagers that said this is a planned pregnancy.
Married ones?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to think there are people that get married at 18 and they
Right.
want to start having a family immediately,
I guess
18 or
so.
19. So
Yeah.
And then, like, I think of...
Yeah, you're going to say like worldwide.
Yeah,
Kind of population.
I was thinking like in a different culture or something like that. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason I could... I mean, it may be a relationship. They're just at that point where they're like, yeah, let's have kids early. But
And there are-
marriage is the one circumstance.
yeah,
here in
well,
the
and there's
South.
also some weird stories out there about teenage girls who try to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it says the poor a young woman is, the more likely she will become a mother.
yeah.
That's interesting. Now, the STD statistics is the one that just really don't. They said an estimated 1 in 5 people in the U.S. has an STD. 2/3 of all STDs occur in 25 people 25 years of age or younger. About 1 in 4 STD infections occur in teenagers. So the percentage gets much higher for teenagers than it does just everyday people. Yeah. So there's 6 of us, so there's possibility that one of us have an STD.
It's probably Justin.
Well, I know it's not me.
Thanks for throwing me under the bus there.
He goes, it's probably not me.
So Keith is excluded.
The army told me I'm clean.
Yeah, I was going to say. I got tested, dog. Been there, done that.
I've had the same woman for 22 years, so
It's Brooks. Brooks hasn't said anything. He's just like,
I'm waiting for I'm just like, oh, man, it's getting closer and closer to me having to say something. I still haven't said anything. It's
process
looking
of
real bad.
elimination. Think of something.
But-
Quit win.
but to be realistic, it's really not a laughing matter. But but for me, it's a shame that and this is my problem. We were talking about it last week, Justin. I know we haven't even got to the topic yet tonight, but we talked about it last week, and Keith made his points about how the church should talk about it, and I mean, we just kind of all looked at it from that direction, and I'm thinking to myself, somebody's got to step up and do this, because if 1 in 4 kids, like, you could literally look in a youth group room and know that if there's 4 kids in that group that's sexually active, it's a good chance that one of those kids got an STD. And to think that, and let me just be real honest here. I'm trying to okay, Justin did not freeze up. He is just thinking politely on his
Oh,
end.
yeah.
I thought
I'm listening.
How many of you know a girl who was pregnant in high school that went to a youth group?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody raises their hands.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I had to think about that.
Everybody raises their hands, and nobody in the podcast can see them.
Verification. I didn't raise my hand.
For my
But-
notification,
but you
there's
did.
a camera, and
did
I just
see
kind of react.
My quick wit got ahead of me.
So, how many people? Let's maybe better. Does anybody know? Never knew a girl who was a teenager, got pregnant, and was a part of a youth group.
Wait, what?
The question is, does anybody not know of someone that was pregnant in a youth group?
Oh, no.
Ron's the only person basically answering up to it.
Because I'm pretty sure we all have known someone in a youth group that was pregnant.
Yep.
Yeah.
While they were in the youth
Just didn't
group,
understand the question.
Well, they may have left.
No,
This
no,
is
I'm
going
talking about as a teenager
Yeah.
in church.
yeah, okay. I had to think about that. I don't know how old this person was exactly, but I think so.
I used to do chapel at a Christian school on Fridays, like once a month, and I knew of 7 girls who were kicked out of the Christian school because they got pregnant.
Wow.
7 in a matter of 3 years.
It's a paid school, don't you have to pay?
Yeah, you have to pay us.
Okay.
Whoa, that sounds like a higher rate than at my high school, at my public high
That
school.
totally makes sense, because, like, that's
Yeah.
what kind of kid... Not just...
Let's make blanket statements here.
I mean, that's the kind of kids that end up in Christian private schools like that.
Well, you're kind of right. I mean, there is a
I mean-
stereotype of kids who they can't cut it in public school, so they're kicked out and they have to go to a private school.
Yeah,
but
that's a fact. They can't go anywhere else.
I'm going to say off
well, not off record, but on record, because we're recording, that most of the kids that were in that school were just kids from rich families who parents wanted them in a Christian school. So there was a few. Most of those kids go to another school we know of. And Keith's thinking. But so I thought it was just, it would be good to kind of put that out there. I mean, I want you to listen to a couple of these. Just STDs. 4 million people are affected with chlamydia. Trick, 3 billion people. Gonorrhea, 1.1 million. That's just gross. I'm not even going to talk about those two. Hepatitis B, 300,000. Syphilis, 120,000 people still. And HIV, 1 million are affected with HIV, and as many as 45,000 new AIDS cases are reported each year. So let me just say this as a blanket statement to everybody, Keith, that if you're going to have sex, whether you're doing it for the first time or the 10th time or whatever you're doing out there, be safe, because that stuff it kind of just sticks with you, literally. I mean, it just, and maybe
most of it for life.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of that stuff there.
And I know a lot of society makes jokes about it, but that stuff's literally terrifying.
No, it is.
It kills you.
I would, if anybody wants to really know, take a military course on STDs, and you may never want to have sex again. That may be all the abstinence training we need right there. A military video, Justin.
You may never want to have sex again. I was terrified for 6 months. I didn't even touch myself.
Chris was like, I'm just scared of getting it. I'm not going to even touch it.
So I thought those were some pretty good numbers just to kind of lay out there. And I'll just give the CDC numbers too while I'm at it. Here's some numbers. This is a 2013 U.S. high school survey, okay? So this is where the CDC got these numbers. They said 47% of teenagers in high school had ever had sexual intercourse. I'm almost guess had never. Had sexual intercourse during the previous 3 months. Wow. 34% in the survey said, I just had sex. 41% of those said they did not use a condom the last time they had sex.
Wow.
15%.
Okay.
Listen to this. 15% of them had sex with 4 or more people during their lifetime. And this is just so people can understand, like the adults who are listening. Teenagers already know this stuff. Yeah. But the adults who think their kids are like all, prim and proper and they're not doing anything, there's a good chance they are.
Yeah. However, we must take into consideration when doing surveys like this, especially with high school students, there is definitely a tendency for the data to be skewed because asking people about their sex lives, people are going to lie. Either one way or another. People are going to be like, oh, no, I haven't had sex or I haven't done anything or anything like that. Or on the other hand, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I slept with like 10 people in the past few months, and it's going to skew the data that way. So we have to at least keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, that's why I go with the first question. Well, I'm just agreeing with Justin. I was just taking that into consideration, thinking, well, I was a teenager. And I would have totally been like, yeah, 20 girls. Buddy, there's not even 20 girls in your high school. 20 girls, teachers. I would have made something out.
That's why I usually use the numbers of pregnancies and STDs, because those are documented cases.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's just put it like this. Those numbers probably aren't skewed if there's 273,000 babies born.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is just a survey among high schoolers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kids in middle school having babies. So anyways,
yep.
I don't want to drag that. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about from last week before we get into our meaty potatoes today?
I feel like we talked a lot about abstinence and abstinence training, a lot to the adults and to females and stuff like that. But when we did talk about men on the abstinence side, it was just like, I mean, I know it's because we're men and stuff like that, and we're trying to hit on everything that's not us. We were like, we're just dumb and stuff like that, and we didn't really address like a teenager male and things like that. Like, I didn't know if you guys had anything off the top of your head that you would say, that off the top of your mind that you would say to someone in that situation. Justin, anybody? I don't know. I was just thinking, like, if it were me, because you can't explain something to a teenage girl the same way you explain it to a teenage boy. Or especially the way we went about talking about the past episode. Like, I don't know who's listening or what, but if I was forced to listen to that last episode anywhere, any of the range of teenager, I wouldn't have listened to it. I would have just let it like beat against my brain a couple of times and been like, okay, abstinence, yeah, got it, and that's it. But and I know it's tough because it's just really tough to get in there. But I didn't know if there was anything you guys want to say. Yeah, okay, pun intended.
I was going to say the teenage boy thing may come more into this episode than the last one, but I think, what can you say to a teenage boy when it comes to sex? You can tell him not to do it, but no, I mean,
but no, that's not.
But
that's going to work.
I think what I want them to hear is if a teenage boy was listening with intention of understanding something last week, it was mainly looking at, don't use this teenage girl as property or a piece of meat or something like that. See them as a human being, because that's what we're here to promote. We're here to promote loving each other as human beings. So if we can't do that, then, and that's my thing, I don't want to equate sex with love, because a lot of people try to do that, which it should, I think, technically we should probably do that, because that was probably the intention that we all have for it. Yeah. But I think the big thing is that, at least respect and love that person as a human being, to be treated, I mean, I don't know, maybe teenage boys wanted to be treated as a piece of meat, like just use me up and that's fine, and maybe that's their mentality, but that's not what women want, and that's what we were trying to get across to them, to everybody last week. And for me, if a teenage boy was listening, it was be safe, and we did. I mean, I think we said a pretty good message. Be safe, wrap your stuff.
Yeah, but it's just like, I mean, I understand that, but it just felt, I mean, I know those things are important. Like we need to focus on the women in the relationship and in that situation, because not to put it that way, that there's more or less power in that situation, but I don't know. We just can't.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and I think to me, if like a teenage guy was listening to the podcast, what I would say, or what I would want them to get out of it, is that we are aware that they are facing a huge societal pressure to have sex, and to there's this sort of view of masculinity that's very prevalent in our culture, that in order to be a man, like, you have to be able to perform and have sex and do all these things in order to be like a true man. And I would argue against that, and that I would definitely say that we want to say that we are aware that those pressures are there and that they are prevalent in our society, but that, just like Keith said, just be safe. No matter if you choose to, that's cool. Like, but if you choose not to, that's also perfectly fine. That it's your choice whether you want to or not, and just be smart about it.
Yeah.
So before we break out into the break, I just want to say that we have people who are actually giving us feedback, and we appreciate that feedback that you're giving us. We seem to have a few people who listen, and they're always saying, man, as y'all are talking and y'all asking questions, I'm answering the questions out loud with y'all. And I think that's great that people are interacting, wherever they're at, listening to the show, and we appreciate that. And please keep giving us feedback and your thoughts and how you feel about these things. And I'm sure, since the podcast literally aired today from last week, or we call it last week's podcast, but we're recording the day we actually release the podcast from last week, if you can follow that timeline. But we appreciate it. We thank you. And you know what? This week's topic might be probably the most difficult one we have ever talked about to this point. So if you want to find out what it is, come back and check it out in a minute or two. We'll be right back.
tend all the scars. Open, your love breaks us open, resurrects a garden, a garden. Love you said, poured out like wine, broken like bread. Waken us in love in our mind.
And we're back, and that was The Liturgist with Aaron Purdy, Garden. And that was a reco, actually, from Justin last week.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate that song. As you heard before, we played Under Earth at the beginning just because we can. And we'll probably hear much, much more as we continue. But this week,
Yeah.
Justin.
Yeah. Yes.
Part two. Part two.
I know.
Part two of the sex series.
And I'm really excited. However, I do want to clarify something that I said at the end of the last segment, real quick, about guys. It's their choice to have sex. Yes, it is their choice, but it's not just their choice. It's also whoever else is participating in having sex with them. There is the sort of dual consent aspect to it. It's not just a guy chooses to have sex and therefore he deserves sex. So
Yes.
I just wanted to make that 100% clear in what I'm saying.
And I'll reiterate that guys get consent. That doesn't mean, I think I want to. If she's got to say yes, and she's got to say yes again. And if you're not, and just to be sure, ask again.
And sobriety is very important.
So,
Sobriety is very important.
She must not be drinking.
Yes.
Because if she's drinking, then don't
visibly
even
under the influence, get consent. Always
Consent, always
get
get
And don't
get
try to
consent 5 times.
persuade her if she says no the first time.
Yes.
And guys, even if you're in the middle of it and she says stop it, that means
Stop.
quit it.
Then you stop.
Frickin' stop.
Get up, get off, get out.
That's something
right.
I'm very passionate about and something that I'm very, very spirited about.
Same.
And
If you see my Twitter, you know.
yes.
So anyways, this week, part 2, we're going to get into something that a lot of people like to laugh about. And a lot of people like to do.
And some people laugh during.
Sometimes. So tonight, Justin,
Yes.
masturbation and pornography.
Yes.
Now you may be wondering why we mix those two categories together. And then again, you're probably thinking, what a way to segue into two things that pretty much are synonymous with each other.
They go hand in hand, involving
Symbiotic.
hands.
And Keith is going to have a hard time tonight with the puns.
I'm gonna have a really hard time.
A
tonight.
really hard time.
By the way, if you have children listening, you have gone too far into this podcast.
Leave the room.
So anyways, there was a couple of statistics I wanted to pull up on both sides, and then we'll get into talking about them, okay? Because I think statistics are good, because they give us maybe a baseline of what we're dealing with. And we'll talk about masturbation first. And I'm just going to say, I don't source these statistics. I find the most credible site I can and go with those. And I just want to say that any site that says less than 100% men
Yeah.
who are masturbating, maybe not credible, but I understand there's people who are going to say no. And we discussed tonight people who may be without the use of sexual genitalia, which that's weird to me, but I know that can happen. So 95% of men admit, see, there's the key word, admit to masturbation. And 89% of women as well. So where people think that it's just a man thing, we see women are just... And for married individuals, the rate is 70% for both men and women. So we can see that even in marriage, there's still people masturbating.
Word.
Fewer married Christian men, 61%, admit to masturbating, which we know that is a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, that's a...
Yeah.
Only 13% consider the practice normal. That is weird. I mean, let me just be honest. If you're not comfortable with what we're talking about, you're probably going to want to turn the podcast off.
Yeah.
But what's not normal about it? You know, what's not normal about masturbation? I mean, it's there. You can either do it safely by yourself, or you can go, as for Christian men, go and commit sin.
I guess that depends on how you define normal.
Yeah.
It's something that every man does, and it happens.
Maybe natural.
Yeah.
It's a better word.
Yeah, I think natural would be better than normal. That's what I think. Normal. I see why people don't consider it normal.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing, one of those statistics were about if Christian men, what they admit.
Yeah.
Do you not think any? Do you think all Christian men masturbate?
No. I think there are a group of Christian men who have this ability never to
Below
touch
the
themselves.
age of 60?
Yeah, I do think there. I know. Actually, that admit.
I'm just saying.
I know of two men who have admitted it to me that they have never, since they became a Christian. Now, before being a Christian,
Yeah, I mean that's
It's all
a
over
different
the
story.
place.
all over the place. But after being a Christian, 0. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad you can do that. Because see, here's my thing. Nowhere in the Bible, and since we're speaking from a Christian perspective real quick, nowhere in the Bible does it cover or address masturbation as a sin in of itself. It addresses lust and addresses those things. I know there's a place where in the Old Testament, I want to say in Genesis, or it may be Kings or Chronicles, it's one of the places where stories are being told.
Yeah, it's in the Ketuvim.
Yeah, so and they talk about where a brother,
Onan's seed.
yeah, and then he spills it on the floor. It wasn't about masturbation. He was actually having sex and he didn't want to get the woman pregnant, so he spilled the seed on the ground and God said poof. And that's it.
No
So,
nachos.
No nachos. Inside jokes do not work on podcasts.
Hashtag.
There it is. But it says, the funny thing is frequency more than 40% of males and 22% of females admit to masturbating daily. 55% of men and 48% of women masturbate at least once a week. That's a pretty good number. I mean, let me ask you this question since we're talking about masturbation real quick, and everybody just chime in how they want. Do you feel that masturbation in of itself, speaking as a Christian, is a sin?
No.
That's tough. I lean towards. Well, you were saying in and of itself. I lean towards no.
Okay.
Just in and of itself.
I still lean towards yes.
Okay.
I would probably lean towards yes.
Okay. So for leaning towards yes, why would you say yes?
Okay, so I think that, at least for me, masturbation, it's very hard to do without lusting. Because especially as men, we are very visual people.
Keep going.
You're not wrong.
I totally agree with you.
Go ahead. I'm following in it too.
Okay, so we are very visual people, and it's very hard for us to do that without thinking of someone or something that we have seen in the past. And so having that mental image and lusting after someone else, I do think that has a sort of mandate from the teachings of Jesus, if you lust after another woman. However, I definitely see the other side of the argument. However, it's really hard for me to escape that visual side and that when imagination takes over and that lust kind of. So I guess if you can do it without lusting after someone, then sure. But
right, and that's my point in saying that in and of itself, I lean towards no, but I don't necessarily think that masturbation is sinless because of what you were saying there.
Here's my argument behind it. It's going to seem a little risque, but who here has gotten an awkward boner in the middle of, just Walmart?
everyone.
Just
I have never
Not
gotten
in Walmart. What are you talking
all
about?
places, not Walmart.
several. I'm just saying,
Are we talking like mid-walk? Like we're just walking around and then I hit the button and there it is?
all right, it's not a bionic penis. There's no button, but I'm saying there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just there.
Okay, yeah.
Nothing sparked it. It just showed up.
Low prices
right?
are exciting.
Yeah.
It's happened to everyone.
Well, I mean that happens for dudes in puberty. I
Exactly.
mean,
I'm
you
saying
can't control
it happens
it.
for everyone. So I'm just saying there's not always a reason for lust behind it.
Right.
And you don't have to necessarily have lust behind it to make it go away.
Right. But there's a huge difference between getting a boner and then jerking off.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Get
I have
to
other
climax.
ways of getting it to go away that just like
The terms that we're using here,
Yeah.
What, boner? I don't know, it's risque.
boner and jerking off. I'm like,
Jerking off's fine.
Look, and the PSA is that it's going to be. I mean, we got to just talk about it openly. I mean, let's just be real. We're going to be honest about how we talk on here.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hide the way I talk here from the way I talk out there. I mean, I'm not going to be overt,
Yeah.
just obvious and like just being vulgar. But I mean, there's some things that we just say and we just say it. And let me just throw this in here. When I said masturbation, I said don't add anything into it. Masturbating.
Yeah.
A sin.
Yeah.
I just think, what I think is like, it's your purpose in doing it.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking, like, in itself, I don't know. Now that Chris said what he said, it just makes
You're
me
thinking
think.
too hard because you're still tying in the reason behind doing it and not just in and of itself.
Yeah.
Too hard.
I don't know. Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I definitely see that how people could think it could be a sin. I mean, I could go to that side too, even in and of itself, because what it is satisfying a sexual urge with something other than your spouse. So I could definitely understand how people could see that, even if you're not lusting in that moment.
But there's nowhere in the Bible that it says you can't do that.
Right, but there's a lot of things that the Bible doesn't specifically say that we kind of...
That we take on principle.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if I was to wake up in the morning with a boner, an erect penis, for all those who don't understand what that is, okay? I mean, that's the scientific terms. I mean, let's just speak about it. An erect penis, there it is. And I'm a married man, okay? And my wife is not at home. And I decide to ejaculate through my hand and penis.
Rub one out.
There you go. That's a sin.
I definitely see how people could think that, yeah.
What did I do wrong?
Again, I see how you could think that satisfying a sexual urge through something other than your spouse could be sinful. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that? Or can you guys see my thought process?
No,
there?
I definitely see that thought process.
That's what, I don't know, like, that's my concept. It's like not the concept of what or what you're thinking about or anything like that. It's just like, there's a reason. You can't, there's not just like, well, is masturbation in itself a sin? It's not. You don't just masturbate because it's just like, here's my natural habit, let me just wake up and masturbate. Like, there's a purpose behind it. Like, every time. There's something you're either thinking about or that there's a reason behind it. There's no in itself. That's why I can't answer the
right,
question.
and I think that's important.
Well, but see, that's to me, that's kind of weird because I'm a guy. I can promise you, give it 5 minutes, it'll go away on its own.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that Ryan is trying to get at, is that as much as we try to say, like, in and of itself, separate it from the mind thing, the thing is that it's, in reality, it's not that simple. We can't separate what we think than what we do.
It's natural, but it's not something we naturally do.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to... And these, I'm just instigating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So here's my thing. Now, I'm a man who's addicted to pornography and sex and things. So when my body reacts to my hormones and I'm aroused, my mind stays there. Okay. All right. So what if in that case, in that scenario, I wake up in the morning, my wife is gone. I am aroused just because, there is a such thing as morning wood. I wasn't dreaming nothing. I'm I'm just going to use myself as an example. I'm not a type of person who dreams, so I don't wake up like, oh, I just had a wet dream. I actually never had one of those things, whatever young men have had.
It's because you rub them out. That's what you do.
So I'll take care of it. But there it is.
It is.
But so me waking up saying, okay, I can't keep this on my mind because there's some men who continually think about sex and think about sex and think about sex. And if somebody says masturbation is a sin and you can't do that, so my mind is contained and this pressure in my mind builds up and builds up and builds up to a point where I can no longer handle it physically or mentally, my first reaction is what we're going to talk about today is pornography too. I need to go find anything that catches my eye. Any woman I'm lustfully thinking after because I am aroused in my mind. My mental state is I need to have sex because that is a man's... At your biology, that's your goal, is to reproduce yourself with a woman, and in order to do that, it's sex. So therefore, here I'm going looking, and now I'm lusting, and I haven't even masturbated yet.
You have a mental boner, and it won't
Pretty
go
much.
away.
But that's what I'm saying. So, and think about teenage boys. Teenage boys are sexually aroused all the time. Y'all were all teenage boys once, and I was a long time ago, and I was of the camp that I had sex all the time. So I didn't have to, and I still masturbated as a teenage boy. Because any teenage boy tells you they're not masturbating, I'm God, I wonder if you're telling the truth. Because I think we all have experimented. But I'm saying you think about these things, and I know this topic so far is getting a little deep, but I want you to think about if we're dealing with Christian people, because you got to think about all the teenage boys that are sitting in a youth group room and they're hearing this message: if you masturbate, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
You know, oh, it's a sin, and you can't do this. But in reality, is that the message I want to portray to them? What I want to portray to them is we shouldn't be lusting after women. We shouldn't put our minds in creating these images in our mind of women. And I understand where, you know, Justin and Keith and Ryan were saying about we're visual people and we're visual nature, but
I just see it as such a rarity to say. I mean, I see where you're coming from to say that to you know, that'd be awesome if that's how it worked.
And then I'm going to throw this at you too. Just another one, quick quip for you. So if a married man he masturbates, but he's only thinking about his wife.
Yes, full blown. Oh, you're asking Keith.
Do you think that's sinful?
Going along the logic that satisfying your sexual urge with something other than your wife, I would say yes. Or again, referring to the act itself, maybe no. But just because you're thinking about your wife doesn't make it your wife. We tend to idealize those things. And once you do that, it's not really that person anymore. It's a vision in your mind. It's like when you're in high school and you're fantasizing about your girlfriend, it's probably not exactly like your girlfriend is. But
I'll give you the girlfriend thing. I guess you have to be married to understand. Because, see, when you get to that point, it's not putting this false fantasy image of your wife in your mind, which this is very difficult to even talk about, but it's you go on past experiences. It's not something you're trying to think of to make different. Yeah. But
well, I still don't agree with it just because it's not my wife. I mean, I think some of these things are very person specific. I mean, just especially if we're talking about it from a Christian standpoint. But I think if it's not your wife, then it's a sin. Like that's one of the reasons your wife's there. Yeah, okay, she's not there at the moment, but like,
what if you're away for 6 months overseas? I
mean, there's just. If you're a Christian and you're away overseas for 6 months, I mean, there's like things that go into that. There's a reason. There's like.
This is good conversation.
I don't know. The only way I can explain these questions and answer things is not because I'm wise, it's because what I would do. And if it was me in that situation, it would just be like, okay, if I've got to go away for 6 months and I'm not going to see my wife, I'm definitely going to have desires. Period, point blank, because I'm a man. But there has to. Other things that go into that. As a Christian, you have to have prayer. You have to have that time with your wife. Not just like a physical time with your wife, but I don't know. Like I just
Skype dates?
When I go away, no. But like when I go away for a time, and if I ever even like a day or a weekend or something like that, it's like I don't know.
Well,
there's just.
Let's ask this then: do you think it's impossible for a man to abstain from that for 6 months?
Yeah,
depending on the man.
No, it's really not impossible.
No, it's not impossible.
I don't think it's impossible for any man.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, it may be really, really hard for certain people, but I don't think it's impossible for anyone.
Like we were saying, I don't think it's not impossible for a Christian man not to masturbate. It's not. He can go without masturbating.
It's not impossible for any man.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't have
regardless.
to be a Christian man.
Let me see.
I personally have gone a year, so it's not impossible.
Yeah.
That humble brag.
I'm just saying. I mean,
that's valid.
Yeah.
That's valid. It's personal experience. It's
just to say,
valid.
of course, this conversation is focusing on the.
I'm
Christian
going to hell
man.
then.
Yeah.
And see that's another thing though, because what you stated, people were saying from the pulpit. If anyone's saying you're going to hell because you masturbate, they are speaking blasphemy from the pulpit because there's no scriptural basis to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and you made a good comment there, Chris. Skype dating.
Yeah. You don't have to necessarily be together to be together.
Do you agree now it's a sin?
The thought process still remains for me that if it's not her physically satisfying it, I could see how that could be sinful.
Like thinking a couple different ways is that like Keith and I also kind of feel this way. It's like a little, I guess, old fashioned. the way we think about it.
I can see that.
And it's just, I can't get past that. Like, I just know it's not. Like, it's, there's only one way kind of thing. And if it's not, I feel personally convicted about it. Like, it's just not.
So how many times are y'all repenting in a year?
Every day.
And I know Justin may want to chime in on this one too, but I want to add one more thing. And this one it's not silly, and I'm not trying to poke fun at it, but Catholic priests who are supposed to hold to a vow of celibacy, not abstinence of. What do you think about it there? Because we see what happens when you try to go your whole life without sex.
Well, the objective for the priest in that situation is not just not to have sex with a woman. The point is to totally abstain, and to essentially, I see it as a fast. It's a fast of your sexual desire, and it's an everlasting fast of your sexual desire. So that doesn't mean you're not going to have desire. It just like you have hunger. It means that you're abstaining from what would you say, satisfying that desire.
That's what celibacy means.
Yeah.
So do you, I mean, I know that at some point in somebody's life, it's happened where they were able to go their whole life. But as a man who has a normal sexual drive, do you think that's what God intended for a man?
No, I don't think that's what God intended. I think God intended for us to get married and have sex.
Okay, so, and here's my thing. So when you place yourself in a position of something that's unnatural that God has set forth, do you think that pushes yourself into a light of failing even more?
Not necessarily, because I think that God intended us to eat every day also, but fasting is highly encouraged biblically.
Lifetime.
Well, no, then you'd be dead. Your life would be very short. I don't think that sex is a requirement for a man to live. I do not think so. I think that it's very, very close. I think it would come after the essentials, but I do not think that it's required to survive. It's not an essential.
But what I want you to see is, and what I want everybody to see is that round of conversation that we were just having. It was not to basically, try to nail down what masturbation is or isn't as a sin. It is something I believe that's kind of personal, because
Yes.
I disagree wholeheartedly with Justin, Keith, and Ryan. Because there is no way in my mind that me being on Skype with my wife and having a little phone date or whatever constitutes any sin, because I'm not lusting. And here's the thing. Nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about satisfying my sexual desire. Jesus never mentioned it. Paul never mentions it. There's no Old Testament scripture that references it. What I see is Jesus says, if you lust after a woman in your heart, then you've committed adultery. Adultery is sex or this act outside of the marriage of you and your wife. So everything I'm doing with my wife is with my wife, whether I'm in the room with her or I'm across the ocean with her. Now, this is just real honest talk.
I get what you're saying there, and I don't want to get off topic away from what we were talking about.
Right.
But, I think it's possible to lust after your wife. So I don't think that just because it's your wife
But you
necessarily
can't
means
commit
it's not.
adultery. You can't commit adultery with your wife. That's the point I'm trying to make. Everybody's overcomplicating the word.
Not a
This
physical sexual act. No,
I would
but-
actually object against that. I think that it's possible that you possibly could, if you are treating her like an object and not like who she is.
if
If you're treating her as someone who is merely satisfying your sexual desire, then I think yes, that you can kind of overstep that bound there.
Well, we were just pointing out that Jesus said adultery is not just sleeping with someone other than your wife. It's something that happens in your heart. So if somehow you twist your desire in your heart for your wife, I think, maybe you could.
Yeah. Yep, and that's where I land.
Speaking about masturbation, and we're talking about masturbation tonight too, because it ties into the subject that's a little bit more imperative to the destruction of men and women's minds today, and that's pornography. Mm-hmm. And I found this cool little statistic chart that I want to go through. And let's just look at it like this. 12% of all websites on the internet are pornographic. 12%. And you're thinking,
only 12?
Well, and you think, that's not that many, but that's over 24.6 million sites.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Does that count Facebook? Because sometimes I see things I don't want to see on Facebook.
There's nothing technically pornographic on Facebook.
Okay, so it's a website made with the intent of being pornographic.
See, now there's some interesting thoughts too, because Twitter doesn't have a no nudity policy. Tumblr doesn't have a no nudity policy. Are those technically going to be lumped in there? Because
Yes. No. Twitter can't be considered a pornographic site because it doesn't promote pornographic material.
Okay.
Yeah. See, there's
Now there are ways, is Google considered a pornographic site?
That's a good point. No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
to be able to search something is nothing.
Well, technically, in Google's defense, they did add their safety search filter that you have to turn off at a certain point.
And I mean,
So they
Twitter
did basically disable it.
Twitter could technically promote porn if it gets trending.
Yeah, well, it can, but I think their trends also have filters on them.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to say that as of like 2011 or something, the global porn revenues were estimated at $20 billion. $10 billion coming from U.S. consumers.
That could save the country's debt.
No, it could. No, I'm serious. And it's a $1 billion a year, $1 billion a year industry.
Wow.
To $3 billion a year industry just in the U.S.
It's one of the biggest industries.
Yeah. Now here's some interesting stats that I just want to throw out there so everybody can kind of get their hands on it. And Keith's over here blushing about the stuff we're doing, and there's a little laugh in there.
That wasn't me. That was Brooks.
Right now, every 1 second. So second, all right. $3,075.64 is being spent on pornography.
Jesus.
In 1 second, 28,258 internet users are viewing porn at this second. 40 million Americans are regular visitors to porn sites. 1 in 3 porn viewers are women. 70% of men aged 18 to 24 visit porn sites in a typical month. 70% of men between 18 and 24. That's a lot of men.
That's not like saying once a month at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Visit porn sites in a typical month.
And I think one thing that you threw out in those statistics and that you threw out at the very beginning of the other set of statistics is an important distinction that this isn't just a male issue.
Exactly.
That you said 1 in 3 women also do that. And that I think the statistic you said earlier was like 43% of women like admitted to masturbating regularly. And so traditionally it's seen as a male dominated issue that typically it's just dudes who deal with it. But no, it both genders really really grapple with that, and or even if not grapple with it, at least do it.
So 25% of all search engine requests are pornographic related. 25%.
Wow.
And that is 68 million a day.
Wow.
These numbers are staggering, and it's good to hear them so you can go, wow, porn's a lot bigger than we thought. 35% of all internet downloads are pornographic.
Sounds about right.
I can believe that one.
We're not going to talk about that. Utah has the highest online porn subscription rate per 1,000 home broadband users. That's good gosh, per 1,000. That's 5.47.
I definitely believe that about Utah.
There's nothing to do
That
with
is the
Utah.
most repressed state in the nation.
Okay. It says, let's see, we won't do that.
How bad
one.
is it that we can narrow it down to which state uses or looks at porn the most? And it's like, Utah, what are you doing?
That's the technology we have. That's how far we've come.
The average age which a child first sees porn, 11.
That's
I would have thought 8.
I was actually suspecting single digits there for some reason.
Yeah.
Well,
It's the average age. The average
first
age.
see.
They first see. Average age.
so that could be much younger, could be much older.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
20% of men admit to watching porn at work online.
Now that is crazy to me.
13% of women.
That's crazy too. But
13?
Yeah.
Wow.
just don't.
The average porn site visit lasts 6 minutes and 29 seconds, but that was
That's
5 minutes
believable.
longer than I thought a man looks at a porn site.
Well, I mean, you got to search.
Brooks, you're right. little dap on that.
It takes a while.
Okay, so what's the lowest day during the year?
Christmas. Thanksgiving?
Yeah, Thanksgiving. More travel time
with your
involved.
families.
What day has the most porn site visits?
Earth Day.
Valentine's Day.
No, during the week.
Valentine's
What day during the week?
Oh, Friday.
Sunday.
Wednesday.
Is it? Chris is right. It's Sunday.
Definitely Sunday.
Yeah.
Church day.
Huh.
Yep.
They said, and there's some other statistics. I wish I could find them, and I know I'm right about this. I don't know the exact percentage, but they said during church conferences, hotels porn usage goes up like 50 to 60% during church conferences or Christian conferences.
What better place to do it?
That's
You can
saddening,
be
but not
absolved of it right
surprising.
away.
It doesn't surprise me,
Yeah,
and
it's not surprising at all, but
Yeah.
it is like it's depressing in a way.
Now, see, that does surprise me because I would think people would be. I mean, even if they're going to look at porn, I would think they would be more on their guard. Like if they're surrounded
I
in that
imagine
situation.
hotel,
You give people
internet.
too much credit.
And like when it says when you're talking about hotels, is it referring to ordering it on the TV or is it talking about through the internet?
yeah, that's how they do it. Ordering
Because
through
see,
the TV.
now see that again, that shocks me because I'm like, wouldn't you be worried that someone's going to look at your bill?
Yeah, and I'm not too sure if they can track internet porn usage through the hotel of itself, and if they can, they can. But I'm thinking, and this is just me thinking, logically, is that it's done through the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that would be the easiest way
Yeah.
to track it.
So you can see
wow.
that porn usage is really high, and it's high among Christians as it is non-Christians. Like it is a deal, and I think we talked to. I think maybe Scholar answered that question when we talked about pornography a little bit from a Buddhist point of view. I don't know if we've ever asked Jack that question specifically, Justin.
Right.
But I wish we had somebody that wasn't a Christian on the podcast with us. Well, Brooks, just Chris. But morally, no matter from where you're sitting, I can't think that from a norm, and I don't know what normal human beings are. I think I'm abnormal myself, but do you think whether you're Christian or non-Christian, pornography is an issue?
Definitely an issue. I don't necessarily think if you're not a Christian that you would have an inherent moral issue, repugnance to it. But I think it's definitely an issue because of how it affects people.
I think the porn industry is an issue. Definitely.
Yes, exactly.
agree.
I think that's
I
an
agree.
important distinction because I know there's a lot of people who, they masturbate to porn and it's not a big deal. It's not an issue to them whatsoever. And if that's how you do, then cool. Whatever floats your boat. But I know the porn industry, however, that's a whole nother sort of game there.
Yeah. The way women are treated are very, very poor.
Yes.
Ranges from very poor to celebrity status, but 9 times out of 10, I think it's probably very poor. And even men too. I mean,
Yes.
you get treated like a piece of meat.
I mean, just to say from the Christian mindset that I once had and the mindset I have now, porn's a problem no matter what. Because you have to think about it. In 90% of relationships, if one partner finds out the other one's still watching porn even during the relationship, someone's going to get pissed off. Because then it comes to the mindset of, why wasn't that one person enough? Why do you need something else? It's an external stimulant that shows that you have a problem.
Having your cake and eating it too.
Exactly. So no matter what, porn's a problem for most people. Granted, there are some relationships that do that together. They're the outliers.
And there have been studies done that suggest that when people view porn regularly, it makes it much more difficult for them to find satisfaction in their partner.
Yeah.
So if you're planning on having a monogamous relationship, even if you don't have sort of an inherent moral view on pornography like most of us do, it still can be a big issue.
Yeah, it can be bittersweet.
I'll go with you, Keith, that pornography in of itself, whether you start small and you're just looking at naked boobies, it's like, teenage boys looking at naked boobies, that's all you need. I mean, let's be honest, that's most boys, and then it gets, okay, we're looking at more full frontal nudity.
Yeah,
and
porn evolves in your mind. It goes
Well, it
from
does.
pictures to, little clips to whole videos to movies.
But remember last week we was talking about sex, and I said sex is like the one release, like people are addicted to drugs and they try to go back and get that high, but they can never get that same high. Sex is the one high that you can get every time if you do it right. I mean, and it's the truth. and you get that same release, you get that same feeling. But the problem is that you evolve, because trying to get to that point it involves more stimulant. You need more, and your mind's got to be stimulated more, so it gets more and more, and it becomes more. Your mind gets more repressed, so it gets a little more open on what I like, and a little more open on what I like, and then you realize you're into a place where it's very dark, it's very dangerous. And I'm not just talking about for you, but for what you're looking at, because to get to that level of porn, it involves people who are probably slaves in the sex trafficking industry. It's probably women who have no freedom. They're being made to do things they don't want to. So it's not just a dark place for your mind, but it's a dark place for what you're promoting and what money you're giving to them.
Yeah.
Which the crazy thing is that for some of us, we've been down those roads, and you get so deep into those roads, because I'm one of those people. Let's be honest. I'm one of those people who have had major issues with pornography, and when you realize where you're at, and it's hard to come back from, it takes years and years to get away from those things. Because the funny thing is, it's almost, I hate to say it, but it almost becomes like breathing to you. You have to have it, and you don't know how to escape it. And I was reading a stat where it says teenage boys talk about pornography addiction is stronger than any drug addiction you can have, because it's the one thing that you can get every time, and there's nothing stopping you. It is free in America right now to look at porn. It is, and you can get it in any media you want. You can get it on your phone, you get it on your computer,
You can get it on your Game Boy.
Yeah, you can get it anywhere.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you have web browsers on your DS. You can look at porn.
Oh,
from
on your
Game
DS.
Boy.
Okay. I thought you were talking about like...
Not the original Game Boy that goes
Yeah.
click, 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 click.
Yeah. I was like,
Mine
wow.
wasn't
That's,
even in color.
I had
that's intense. That's like 16-bit stuff there.
Tetris and Pokemon.
And let's make a blanket statement. Pornography is sin.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, yeah.
Looking at pornography is sin, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't do it with your wife, and it's not still sinful. I just don't care what you say. I agree with it. It's a dangerous thing. It is horrible. And we didn't make any recos this week because we had so much to talk about. But I want to make a reco, two different recos this week for people who are having issues with pornography. There's a site and a group and a software called Covenant Eyes. It's a really good one. And there's another one called Triple X Church. I suggest if you want to get one, use Triple X Church, because I think the software they have is really affordable a month. If you pay for it, they'll block it, and they email somebody you designate as your accountability partner when you look at a website.
Buddy.
And I've been on it. The only reason I got away from it, honestly, I just want to be honest, was because I hated using their browser. And I hated the things it did with my computer, because like there's certain sites like Huffington Post you have to whitelist, and it's because it catches everything. Like Twitter, like you can't look at half Twitter profiles because it blocks them. So it became a nuisance where I was working at because of all the stuff I was doing for the office, and I was like, I'm just getting rid of it. Which I want to be honest, I shouldn't. I should be back on Triple X Church, and Triple X Church is not the software. It's called X3 Watch. And if you listen to Bad Christian Podcast, those guys use it because they'll tell you the same thing. They have problems with pornography. I don't know about the guys in this room, but I've had problems with pornography. And I'm not going to lie to you. It is tough because if I see something sometimes, it takes... Can I be like over spiritual for a second?
Do it.
Speak what you want to.
Okay. In Galatians, Paul speaks about the fruit of the Spirit. Okay. And he talks about self-control being a fruit of the Spirit. So I want to say this to Christian people. If you're not in tune with the Holy Spirit, you don't have self-control. If you're failing and faltering in life, which I do a lot, and you're talking about, man, my self-control is gone, whether it's eating, drinking, drugs, sex, whatever it is, it's because you're not in line with the Holy Spirit, because that's a fruit. You cannot have self-control. And I know non-Christians will balk at this, and I don't care, but this is a Christian when I'm thinking you just can't control yourself from those desires with an absence of God. So that's my problem. So if I'm having issues with self-control, the first thing I check is my relationship. But that's just the thing. Pornography is a evil industry, and I don't give a crap what anybody says. You can jump on my Facebook, you can jump on our Facebook and balk it all you want, but I will give you testimony upon testimony of women who were in the industry, some men who were in the industry, and they're going to tell you it's an evil place.
Awful industry. And it makes a ton of money.
A ton?
Yeah, it makes...
A butt ton of money. It's just ridiculous. I mean, like Chris said, if we was to put that amount of money towards the national deficit, our country would be out of debt. Screw taxes.
Yeah.
What if they? I'm trying to think. Could they? If they tax the porn industry that heavy, like they tax the middle class, we may be out of debt. Period. Forever.
Well, it may come eventually because. Sorry, I had that one. Okay. After we edit that out. Well, it may come eventually because, I mean, as you see, the government loves to tax vices, and that's what pornography is. It's a vice. And even though it may not be physically destructive to yourself and people the way that tobacco and alcohol can be, marijuana we're seeing now that it's legalized in some places, you can bet the government would love to get a piece of that. They would love to get a large chunk.
What you're missing, Keith, though, is the government is getting some of that on the down low because people pay off their politicians and their senators and their governors so that way they don't get taxed.
Well, but that's just speculation.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
we can. I know that, but that's just a speculated thing.
But what I'm talking about is like a tax that you can really see. Like cigarettes are taxed to.
It's ridiculous.
California.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous how much tax is on tobacco.
Most porn is consumed on the internet, and so how are you going to put a tax on specific sites and specific?
Easily, you tax the income of the companies that are doing it. You increase their tax rates if you force them to register as a pornographic company, and you tax their income.
I believe that those companies are going to fight those suits, though.
Well, see, there's only so much they can do. Now, yes, they can incorporate in other countries, but a lot of people do that. But if they want to function and operate in the United States, which they do, I can go ahead and tell you that, then they're going to get taxed more heavily. And even just taxing a marginal amount more, not even nearly the rate that tobacco is, I mean, they could be making tons. Even if they raise it at 10%, which sounds like a lot, but it's not as much as you would think, that would be $1 billion more in tax revenue a year.
And I would argue that the porn industry is physically harmful too. Not just to the people in the industry, but like the people that view it. Because going off the slippery slope, and there are statistics to back this up. I don't have any because I'm not prepared. But I mean, going off of what Chris was saying, a picture to a GIF to a video, small video clip to a larger video clip to a movie. I mean, it moves to real life. Situations, and
you try to take that fantasy that you're trying to get on from the internet pornography to a real relationship.
Maybe some people think it's a bit extreme, but I mean, porn leads to rape.
No, and I agree. I totally agree with that. It leads to rape. It first leads to rape in your mind, and then it leads to rape,
and then it goes
outside
further.
That. And people's like, well, you're going to walk down the street and abduct one? No, it's just doing something in the bedroom with a woman who doesn't want to have.
And then again, there are porns about people getting raped, and like it's not like they're actors. Like real people get raped. It's awful. And like you said, it goes from being a fantasy to well, I can do it. I mean, it's
right. And then like you have all these expectations, and especially if you're in a relationship and you bring that into the relationship and be like, oh, well, I saw this happening on some porn, and which porn sex, first of all, let me just say this, is incredibly unrealistic.
It's just it's just like the commercials you see for McDonald's or Chili's or whomever of the pictures on the menu or stuff. That's fake.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it gives you unrealistic expectations of what you think you're going to get when you get into that bedroom with that woman, whether married or not. You're not going to find that anywhere.
There's no way around.
I'm not going to say you can't find that anywhere. Most people are paying for that still.
Yeah.
But you're not going to find that with your average person that you're dating or married to. They're not going to want to do those things. And the problem is that it does carry into the bedroom. It does, and it will, and it's hard to stop. And that's the thing. I'm going to tell you that I don't want you to do it, but I know you're going to do it. Find some way to break those habits, because look, we all fall short. It's just who we are. Yeah. I can't say that I'm perfect. If any of y'all can say you're perfect, then you've got to teach me how to be perfect.
Nope.
It's a trap that I tried to escape year upon year. I remember the first time I sat in a youth group area and said, I'm addicted to pornography. And those kids' mouth, I swear. And the funny thing is none of y'all were there the first time I did that. and they were like, "What?"
I remember when you told me, and I was blown away, and then I felt really comfortable.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that's who I am as a person. I'm real. I mean, yeah, I believe in Christ.
Yeah.
And but believing in Christ shows me that much more of how imperfect I am.
Right.
Because that's what I believe, and that's the thing that I don't think I can get across to, people who aren't in the faith, because I think they think Christians are these people who think they're so perfect and stuff, and I'm trying to tell them, I am like the worst person you have ever met. The things that I've thought of, the things that I've done, I'm like, dude, I am such a horrible person. And then I'll have people who are not Christians saying, you're not a horrible person. I'm like, who the hell are you to tell me I'm not a horrible person? I know the things I've thought of and the things that, I have done in my life. And I'm thinking, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is a lot of that crap stems from the pornography that I watched for so many years, and then I got trapped in. It's because it kept taking my mind to places that it shouldn't be.
It's toxic,
and it is. It's the most poisonous thing I've ever seen in our society, and it's the thing that runs it.
Yeah.
The pornography industry literally runs our country.
It is a toxic, awful thing that makes a ton, like we said, a butt ton of money.
Yeah, and it's the craziest thing. And you talking about objectifying women?
Yes,
it is. It is, I think, the single most evil thing when it comes to that subject, because it takes women, some of the most beautiful women in the world, and turns them into just objects of meat hanging in the back refrigerator.
And
that's what it's done.
There's been this big thing lately with women of empowering yourself through your body positivity, all that stuff. And that's a good thing, I think. But I think the porn industry takes that and twists it in the worst way.
Yeah.
And I don't think any positivity comes from porn.
Let me ask you something, Justin, because you're the feminist in the group.
I am.
You see these women who are running through the streets of New York topless, and these women who are throwing bras and burning them again that we've seen so many times. How do
we did the thing I think it was like episode 29 or whatever, the Free the Nipple campaign.
Yeah. How do you feel about that when we're talking about pornography? Now, I know it's not like objectifying women, and you're going to say, well, it's them, sharing their body, but when the world, and especially our country, is so consumed by the porn industry, and now they're flashing something that is sexual in nature to other men, how do you feel about that? I mean, I'm not saying that's porn. I'm just saying in conjunction with what we're talking about tonight, how do you feel about that?
That's okay. So first of all, I feel like the question has to be a lot more pointed than that, because
do it.
Basically, okay. So how I feel about that, I guess. I mean, I'm gonna answer it as best as I can. I think that in some regards, and at least when it comes to free expression of women and being able to, be themselves and have that, because I'll say what I said in the episode that we talked about the Free the Nipple campaign, that I don't think that breasts are inherently sexual things, that there are social constructs that we have built. And I know you'll disagree with me on that, Keith.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, he's right.
But they're not inherently sexual things. It's things that we've hypersexualized and things that we have made to be super sexual. So I think that is a totally separate issue from what porn is, which is a power-dominated industry that takes advantage of women and their sexuality, and men. I'm not saying it's just limited to women, depending on what you watch or what you're into.
Yeah.
I think it's totally exploitative of people and their bodies, and treating them not as human beings and not as the people who God created them to be, but rather as things to be used for sexual gratification.
To turn a profit.
Yes.
Well, that's what.
So I think I think those are two separate issues.
Mm-hmm. No, I just wanted to point it out there, because how can I get Justin involved unless I talk about feminist activities?
Right. Well, I mean, Justin, I'm with you as far as feminism goes. I'm with you.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't care if a woman runs down the street topless, but I'm going to tell you that most men are going to see it as a sexual thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's the commentary, that men shouldn't see it as a
most
sexual
Western
thing.
men will see it that way.
Yes.
Because if I can tell you one thing, 90% of the people I talk to in Germany that were from Europe all think American men are infantile because of our fascination with breast.
Yeah,
all of them think that way.
Yeah,
maybe not the French.
Europe is a little different than the rest of the world. It's not
even that. I've met people in Europe from South Africa, from Asia, from all over the world.
I wouldn't quantify that statement from Asia.
No, absolutely not.
Quantify that statement from Asia.
Not Asia. Asia, they're much more protective of the breast than even Americans are as a sexual object.
I'll go with that too, because Asia, that's a no-no. There's no such thing as women walking around topless or anything like that in Asia. And
I'm not talking about the fact that women are walking around topless. I'm saying that they think the way men glorify breast is infantile in its nature.
See,
that it's not a sexual thing to them.
See, I still got to disagree as far as Asia goes. The breast is traditionally an extremely sexual thing in the Asian continent, spanning all the way from the Middle East to the Far East.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very, very sexual.
Well, these two guys from Vietnam would disagree. But I'll say I agree with you only because I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I'm just
except
going
for what these two guys.
I'm just going off of culture and people who live in that culture and society, mainly in those areas. It is a very sexual thing. It's something that it's to show cleavage and things of that nature is either a no-no or it is in the industry of a sex type worker.
Right.
Yes.
That's the thing there. And we can pick apart which countries, but we'll just say the majority of the larger population countries who are, I'm going to say, probably more advanced. I think in not that Europe's less advanced, but I think of the less advanced cultures in some places in Africa where there's no clothing, everybody just walks around, or some of the tribes in South America that it's just like that. That's just because that's the way the culture was. But Justin has a point. What, Justin?
No, keep going.
Justin has a point that is about the culture, and it's how the culture was thought of, that if you protect this area, it becomes more sexual to that person. It becomes more, I see this, and I don't know why it is, but I mean, like we talked about that one time when we talked about Free the Nipple. I think to Song of Solomon's when, and if it was Solomon who wrote this, it was saying how he talked about the breast, and it was a delight for him. So I just don't think it's an American thing. I think that the breasts are a sexual thing.
It's not a new thing, that's for sure. So where did the sexualization of the breast start? Because it obviously started thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago. So at some point, some guy off the top of his head, without being guided in any way, thought that's sexual. So is it something that society constructed, or is it something that people think? So therefore it is.
Clothes probably had a big part.
Yeah.
Seeing them all the time to limiting.
I think that has to do a lot with the way it's portrayed in certain areas of Africa. And there's something people need to understand. When you see those pictures of women in Africa aren't wearing any clothes, men in Africa aren't wearing any clothes, that's an extremely small part of that continent.
Exactly.
The large majority of Africa, they wear clothes all the time.
That's why I went with certain tribes in Africa and South America, that just to quantify that statement. But and that's what I want to say. It's just it is culture too. I believe with you, Justin, on that. But how when we're talking about pornography, I want to be very specific. It's the industry that objectifies sexuality for the turn of profit. That's what it is. I mean, that's what it's always been. It's just it's just used different names over the years, whether it's been prostitution, strip clubs, whatever it is. I mean, we're using people.
That's important to put all those under that loop too.
I mean, we're using people to make money.
Right. I agree with you there, but I also want to point out that it's not just about the money, because there is a massive amateur porn trade where the people producing it don't get paid any money whatsoever. Only the people hosting it do. And I think it's even more dangerous than being just about the money, because I think it's driven by people, as you said before, wanting to find a new high, and that more extreme high, and that is extremely dangerous territory, because where do you stop with that? Agree. How far is too far?
What line is drawn?
Absolutely.
And as I had all this in my head to do differently tonight, the way we wanted to go about it and talk about it, and Justin's just sitting there, and I can't read him tonight. I don't know if he's just had one too many gin and juices. But it's, for me, for masturbation and pornography, the way we talked about it, the reason I feel like I missed the point on it tonight is because it's just something that's consumed my life for so long.
You know, I mean, you got to think, me growing up, and that was, you know, the chance you get to pornography, you know, was finding the Playboy under your dad's bed. I mean, I didn't have internet pornography. And then when you see it for the first time and you're stimulated, you're like, oh my gosh. And then you find the random VHS laying around your uncle's house, which I'm saying this like y'all know what I'm talking about, but it's like when you pop it in and you go, I know I shouldn't be watching this, but this is, you know, this is actually kind of amazing.
And then to equate it to us, like the first time you think, well, there's a image thing on Google, what if I type in boobs?
Yeah.
The first time you go to Cinemax.
Yes. Or even that, or like the first time you get really not like a cable upgrade, and you're like, oh, if I stay up
HBO.
late, yeah.
And I think that's what's so scary about it, at least for me, is we're only getting more and more connected with what we want to see. It takes less time now to view. Gosh, Brooks. It takes less time now to view whatever you want. I mean, internet speeds are getting faster. We've got phones in our hands that can access pretty much any.
Yep.
We've got phones in our hands that can access pretty much any site we can imagine. Yeah. And our society is, I think, only going to get more and more entrenched in pornography unless we do something.
I mean, a lot of porn sites have a mobile version.
I mean, heck, even nowadays you have like the 3D, they're working on virtual reality, like porn experiences, and stuff like that. Whereas back in the day, like probably in Keith's day, like you had to find porn. You had to find porn just randomly out in the woods somewhere.
I had a porn record player.
You went on a porn walkabout or something?
Who finds porn in the woods?
Okay, well, you want to know?
You'd actually be surprised.
I don't want to know about this.
A large phenomenon of people like the older, like a generation above us. Like,
is that like when you find Mary Magdalene on a piece of toast? You
what?
Just kind of find porn in the woods, like on a tree somewhere.
Okay, so
but no, my point is where it's gone from that to where like it's wanting to get a more immersed experience and be able to almost like quote like you're there, trying to get closer to the real thing without actually being there. And it's, I think the main point that it's trying to get at is that it's chasing this sort of intimacy. It's wanting to get to intimacy with another human being and trying to connect with another human being, but
no strings attached.
Through porn you cannot do that.
Yeah.
As hard as you try and as much as you try, you cannot connect to that person because ultimately, like, it's just, you know, gone at the end, like when you're done, and it's just thrown away for your own gratification.
And I think the more that you try and the more that you do it, the more desensitized you'll get and the less intimacy you'll actually have. And maybe in the future, you'll even want that intimacy less. And it becomes just a totally physical aspect.
It definitely affects your brain and the way that your brain is wired and the way it works and how you seek intimacy and connection with another human being.
And it's really hard to undo that damage once it's done.
Yes.
I think Matt on Bad Christian was talking about it takes like, and I might have to go back and listen to the episode where he's talking about it, but it says it could be like, it could take 3 years for images to kind of clear your mind where you don't think about those pornographic images you hold. And he could have been 7 years or 7 months. It was something ridiculously long like that was just talking about the image as that pornography set in your mind. And the funny thing is that, you know, you can't escape it. I mean, let's just be realistic. If you're on Google or you're on, let's just say you're on like Huffington Post. I use Huffington Post a lot to, you know, look at news articles and stuff. And there's all these little ads down at the bottom with, you know, women who aren't naked, but yet they're close enough. And then they say these things and you're like, it won't be bad just to look at that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, it wasn't really that bad, but the clickbait that got you in your mind automatically puts you into that thought. And then the problem with it is that, well, I didn't really see what I thought I was going to look for. So let me look for something that gets me. And then, let me look for this. And then let me look for this. And then by the time you're done, you're so entrenched into all these websites and these things that you're looking for. Well, the things that you were supposed to be doing are no longer doing. and we're talking about destructive physically, it's a time killer.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that thing said the average porn site visit is like 6 minutes. But think about those people who are so desensitized and are looking for so much, and they continue to go and go and go, where they have spent 6 minutes, now they've spent 6 hours.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Talking about that statistic, it said the average visit to a porn site, right? So how many porn sites is a person going to when they go online?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
spending
dozens.
time searching for those porn sites, like through Google,
and trying to find, like, okay, so earlier before we started the podcast, we Justin sent us a link, and we were looking at real-time searches on a site called Pornhub, and it's people searching porn on a porn site and all the searches they were coming up with. And
as it's like live feed.
Yeah, so as they're typing them in and hit enter, we're seeing
crazy.
This. And this is the thing. It's like you can see where people are looking for, just normal sex or women or this to they're getting some stuff where we were like, wow, we couldn't even read this on the podcast because it's not like it's just vulgar, but it's just disturbing.
It's incredibly specific.
Very specific.
That's where nachos came from earlier.
Yeah.
Someone just literally searched nachos.
Which we can understand that sometimes searches may be, auto-typed and auto-corrected and stuff. Because like we said, they're mobile sites. But, but to think about it to that degree, it is killing the time and Justin's talking about intimacy. That's another area that's killing it, because this is what I know. I've been married for a while. I have a pornography addiction. It kills the intimacy in relationships. It does. And it doesn't matter if you're married or not married. Like we said, we're not going to quantify this to Christian or non-Christian. Women do not like their men looking at porn.
Nope.
Now, there may be some men who like their women looking at porn, but let's just say this, deep down you don't. Deep down you don't, because you think you're going to get something out of your woman because they look at it, but then when you realize that she's looking at it behind your back, you're not going to like that either.
Yeah, she's taken away. It's just nothing positive comes from it. Nothing positive.
And I like the way we kind of put masturbation and pornography together. It wasn't because we think they're just synonymous with each other, but I wanted to show you where one could be, there's this gray area of being wrong to there's this area of this is wrong. And when it comes to sex in this sex series, pornography is something we do not support. I believe most men look at it. Even the statistics say that. Most men look at it. I think every man in his life looks at porn one fashion or another at some point in his life. I just believe they do. I don't think no man, and I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I think a man from the time he's, the average age user was 11 years old. From the time he's 11 to the time he dies, will see porn once in his life. Now, what he does with it from there, I don't know.
And it's I think it's pretty common knowledge that we all know the porn industry is pretty bad. It's a bad area, and people still look like it. It doesn't affect most people because they think it doesn't harm them. But as we've gone over, it is harmful. It can harm your relationships. It can lead to some pretty dangerous things. Like, it's bad. I mean, it's just it's bad.
Yeah,
it's rough.
I'm not going to be hypocritical, about it. I'm not going to say don't do it because I haven't done it. I'm going to have. I'm just going to tell you from my experiences of it, and where it leads you. And, it's like with, talking about the whole masturbation, if it's a sin or not a sin thing, and everybody has their personal beliefs on it. I don't think anybody here would object from laying a blanket statement on pornography. Nope. Don't do it.
Nope.
And whatever reason you want to use, that's fine with us. But I'm just going to tell you, it's not good for a man.
Nope.
I'm going to say it's not good for a woman, but I'd rather have a woman say that. But Justin, would you? Sorry,
women, we don't need to do it.
There you go. But I don't know. Does anybody want to say any final thoughts on either subject? They want to yell at me because I said too much crap tonight or gave them hell tonight. So, because it's. I thought I was going to have to generate more conversation about masturbation, so that's where I went with it. I'm sorry.
Are we all going to have things that we can recommend, like you talked about?
Go ahead. If you got something you want to say before we go into break and go into the final segment, go ahead.
Okay. So just something to recommend. All right. So there's two things I want to recommend. Going off this porn industry thing a little bit, and also kind of going off the little feminist thing we talked about. One of them is called RAINN, RAINN. It's a charity. It's a nonprofit charity for women that are abused and raped and sexually assaulted. And it also has a big part in the porn industry, getting women out of that. And they, like I said, it's nonprofit. You can donate however you want. And there's also another thing that I'm big in. If you talk to me for longer than 10 minutes, you know I'm big into music. And I think something that maybe we could do on a future podcast is talking about how dangerous the music scene is when it comes to, I mean, even, you know, porn and objectifying women and sexual assault and all that stuff. There's another site I want to promote called Safer Scene.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've posted on my Twitter various times, and they have a lot of it's a Tumblr, it's a website, it's a lot of things, but the big thing is educating people, getting people aware that, you know, these things happen. Women and I mean men too, but we're really focusing on women that get, you know, objectified and harmed and raped and assaulted, and even just something as simple as like pressuring them to send you nudes or something. Like, that's not okay.
It's not acceptable. Yeah,
it's just not. I mean, it is, and it's sad when these music scenes like punk is very big on saying it's all inclusive, it's for the downtrodden and et cetera, when it's probably the most toxic scene when it comes to treating women poorly. I mean,
yeah,
we talked earlier about nostalgia with songs. I mean, how many of these songs do we like that are about being mad at women or a girl? I mean, we love, I don't know if we want to name names, but a band like Under Oath, I mean, Aaron Gillespie has proudly said that They're Only Chasing Safety is about his struggle with a girl and being mad at a girl. Fall Out Boy, Pete Wentz wrote Take This to Your Grave about a 15-year-old girl that he was mad at because she didn't love him back. Yeah, et cetera. I mean, we could go back to various other, you know, older AC/DC and stuff, but
wow, we're getting deep now.
I know, but anyway, I just point is that it's important to me, and I want people to know about it. I mean, any music scene is toxic. The hip hop community is pretty bad when it comes to women sometimes,
especially the early classic hip hop stuff.
I mean, country music, you hear stories from certain women about how poorly they're treated in a what is viewed as a male thing, a male outlet.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to get very off topic, but those are two things I really wanted to recommend.
Anybody else want to add some final comments to what we talked about tonight?
Yeah, I think we were pretty thorough.
Yep. It's a lot, and it's hard to try to come up with something that is like a final comment or final thought about it, because we've covered so much ground tonight, and it's really difficult to try to sum it up. But
it's hard to try to put the nail in the coffin on something that's not.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I would say that no matter what you believe about, you know, masturbation or pornography, that whether you think it's okay or whether you think that it's a sin, or no matter where you fall in that spectrum of where it is, that that you are loved and that you are accepted for who you are, even if we think you're wrong. As some people in this room,
we really want to make it clear, we don't think you're an awful person if you watch porn. Oh, well,
right. We think that you're probably contributing to something that's very negative and very hurtful, but we don't think that, you know, you're intentionally a very evil person for doing that.
Yeah.
You know, that we love you and we accept you for who you are, no matter what you believe and what you think about it. We just want you to be aware of these things and what we think about these things. Mm-hmm. So
I just want to say thank you for all the edits tonight. And just that I appreciate everybody's candidness about the situations and the topics that we talked about tonight, and putting up with my crap in the beginning. We spent a long time, and I ain't gonna lie to you guys tonight, we could re-record this and get a totally different take on everything we said tonight. That's how crazy these topics are, you know. So guys and girls, we'll be back in a moment to kind of finish up tonight. So enjoy a classic. And that's our nostalgia song of the week. Confide with such great heights.
Hey, Justin, your music video over there was like 2 seconds out of sync.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
And the problem is now that since I have everything at my fingertips, I can mute us during the songs, and Justin is the only person that has to stay quiet through that.
Nerd.
So it's that time. When
Yes, it is.
We hand over the reins of the whole show to the maestro. The sequel. The number 2.
Hi, guys.
It's story time with Keith.
Yeah, I hope he didn't build me up too much. Starting to feel a little nervous having to live up to all this hype, but that's okay. I will attempt to please your ears with my my dulcet tones as we discuss some very, very important news this week. I'm only doing one story this week for the sake of time, but I thought you might like to know about the presidential campaign of D's Nuts 2016. Headline: Presidential sensation D's Nuts is a 15-year-old Iowa farm boy. D's Nuts, the independent candidate from Iowa, is polling at 9% in North Carolina for President of the United States. Sadly, D's Nuts does not appear to exist. But Brady Olson does. When I heard about the Limberbutt McCubbins story, I realized I could, Olson tells the Daily Beast. Brady Olson is 15 years old. He filed to run for the President of the United States with the FEC on July 26th as D's Nuts. According to a public policy polling survey released Wednesday, almost 1 in 10 Tar Heel State voters would vote for him in a race between Nuts, Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton. Limberbutt McCubbins, by the way, as you may remember from a few weeks ago in one of our special Justin's Juicy Bits segments, is a cat from Kentucky seeking the Democratic nomination for president. I actually don't know what ticket D's Nuts is running on. I don't think it mentions.
He's independent.
Oh, independent. Yes, it did. The first paragraph. Thank you very much. So he's nonpartisan. Dozens of real D's Nutses, or D's Nutses, do live as citizens in the United States of America with legally changed names from Phoenix, Arizona to West Hartford, Connecticut, from sea to shining sea, but a potential president does not appear to be one of them. So what that was just saying is people have changed their names to D's Nuts.
Wait, like legally?
Yes, legally have changed their name to D's Nuts.
That is insane.
That's so crazy.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, it's a little.
That means no matter what I do, I won't ever make a mistake that big.
It reminds us of a certain special episode of Friends involving Mike Crapbag and Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. But anyway.
Probably my favorite episode of Friends.
According to a Federal Election Commission filing, the D's Nuts running for president lives at 2248 450th Avenue in Wallingford, Iowa. I just want to know what town in Iowa needs a 450th Avenue. Sorry, Skylar Miller. The problem, however, is that there is no D's Nuts who lives in Wallingford, Iowa, a tiny town of 197 people, according to the Emmett County Recorder's Office. Seriously? Emmett County Recorder's Assistant Jill White asked the Daily Beast when mentioned there was a federally registered presidential candidate by the name of D's Nuts, and that a reporter was requesting information on a resident by that name. There's only one Brady Olson, the son of a farmer and a dental assistant, and a rising sophomore at the Gradinger Terrell Ruthven Ayrshire Community School in rural Iowa. Why do you need that many names?
I have no idea.
Now he's trying to figure out his path to becoming the first 15-year-old president of the United States under an assumed name. The next step is to get some party nominations like the Minnesota Independence Party or the modern Whig Party, Olson says. It would also be great to find a VP, preferably McCubbins, because the Nuts McCubbins ticket sounds amazing. So, how did Brady Olson go from being a standard Iowa high school student to the number one trending topic on Twitter literally overnight? Literally overnight. Well, the polls are pretty long. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
And Perkins.
We're going to cut that.
And Perkins.
It started because someone emailed us under the name D's Nuts, said Jim Williams, an issue polling specialist at a public policy polling. He said, I'm D's Nuts. I'm running. Here's my filing statement. Would you poll me? Williams thought this was something public policy polling would do, so he squared nuts off against Trump and Clinton in Minnesota a few weeks ago. He polled at 7%. I'm trying. This is extremely long, so we're gonna.
That's good. I think we get the point.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut down to like the last paragraph so we can get the. I didn't realize how long this article was.
Jesus.
You should have got a Heffany Post article.
Yeah. Okay.
Rookie mistake.
That's great, Justin.
Thanks, Justin. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. To round it all out, the U.S. would have to pass an amendment to make it so that D's Nuts could run, but Congress wouldn't do that after being so embarrassed to losing to D's Nuts. Anyway, all I can say to that is, got him.
Oh, anyways, that was a pretty interesting article.
Yeah,
Mr. Keith.
Yes.
The best part about that is how many news reporters are forced to say D's Nuts on live air.
I know it is probably one of the greatest practical jokes played in American history's politics.
Yeah, and if anyone out there doesn't know what D's Nuts is all about, there is a video that you would be welcome to view. Just go to Google and type in D's Nuts. Go to YouTube.
D-E-E-Z.
Nuts. And then Nuts. And have yourself a nice laugh because it's pretty hilarious. You will find many new one-liners that you can say, including D's Nuts and got him. So, hope you enjoyed my segment there.
Oh, don't forget, something came in the mail today.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I don't think there was a better story of rounding off our topic tonight than the story of the political candidate D's Nuts for 2016 after a masturbation and pornography meat and potatoes. So Keith, very well done.
Thank you.
We will be banned from all Christian websites.
Yep.
Thank you. So in saying that, we have spent a lot of time talking about the
something that doesn't
unmentionables.
take a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Brooks. So I appreciate everybody listening this evening. Give us your feedback. As we always say, Ron has mentioned many times Instagram. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and all the good stuff. But hey, check us out at forgettingwalls.com. Go over to the podcast section on the Forgetting Walls page and leave us a comment. Like a podcast. Check us out there. Download us on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're everywhere. This is the promotional part. We have no sponsors, so we sponsor ourselves.
What's Stitcher?
It's the
Stitcher is an alternative podcasting
for Android.
for Android systems, and you can get it on Apple products as well.
Just use.
Is that what the website's through? Because I never look at the URL. I just kind of click it.
No. Stitcher is an alternative. It's like it's just an alternative site to listen to podcasts, and it's its own separate hosting entity.
Yeah.
So,
for those of you that are ignorant like me, there you go.
Check out Stitcher. It's just as easy as everything else, and it works better. I like it. Anyways, in saying all that, with the promotional stuff, Justin.
Yep.
How do you like us being in the new room?
I like it. I can see all of you, and I'm slightly like above all you, so it's like I'm looking down. So it's like ha ha ha. Like I don't know. It's like I can see. First of all, see all of you, which is great because I don't usually see all your faces. So it's nice to see all of you finally.
No, it's not.
Tonight.
No, it's not.
Bueller.
Not even mad. Not even mad.
And saying all that, we want to say good night, good evening,
good morning if you're listening in the morning.
Vietnam.
There it is. And just reminding you that people are people. They're not projects.
That's right.
And I just screwed all that up. People are not projects. They're people just like you and me. So love them like you love yourself. And we hope you listen to us next week. And
please.
Yeah, please do. And we're out. I'll have to do that again.
Thank you for listening to Forgetting Walls podcast. If you're subscribing to us on iTunes, leave us a rating to help us spread the word about this podcast. Remember, the only way this works is if you share your story. So be sure to visit the website and leave us a comment at forgettingwalls.com or find us on Twitter at forgettingwalls and facebook.com/forgettingwalls.
Peace!
find your lack of faith disturbing.
Oh my gosh, that's a wrap.
So yeah, feel free to cut out like a couple of those paragraphs. I didn't realize until I got halfway through it, like, oh my god.